Good morning. This is Teresa LaFleur, your instructor for the coding certification course. Y'all just took your first module exam, chapter exam, however you want to call it, the Unit 1 exam. And overall, the grades weren't bad. Remember, for the CPC exam, you have to have a 70 or higher to pass. So that I'm looking at that criteria. The average grade was about a 76, so that's not too bad. But I noticed that there were several questions that had 50% or less correct response rate. And I wanted to go over those with you. So let's take a few minutes and look at those. As you can see here, the first question is, when a condition is produced as a manifestation of another condition or complication of a treatment, disease, or condition, more than one code is needed to clearly define the condition, injury, or disease. This is noted by which instructional note or notes in the ICD manual? And the answer is code first and use additional. Code first always tells you that there's at least two codes. And use an additional code is the same thing. So both of them tell you that you need at least two codes. And that's what it was asking for in this question. All right, the second one, a patient who is suffering from osteosarcoma located above the right knee begins chemotherapy today at today's encounter. What's the correct code? And this third one is the correct code. The Z51.11 is the code for chemotherapy. And if you go look up chemotherapy for cancer, it's going to send you straight to Z51.11. You just have to verify it. The C40.21 is the code for the osteosarcoma above the right knee. And you can find that by either looking up osteosarcoma, or you can do what I did, and I used the neoplasm table. And I went to lower limbs and then looked for the long bones, because they said it was above the knee, so you're looking in the long bones there. And that would be the C, I think it says it's C40.2, and it's got a little mark to tell you to go look if an additional numbers needed. So when you verify that, you'll know that the C40.21 is the one you need to choose. And remember, when you have two codes, you got to sequence it correctly. And this patient was being seen for the chemotherapy, not for the cancer. So the chemotherapy is first, the cancer is the secondary code. On the next one is a 67-year-old female patient with stage 5 chronic kidney disease, presents today for ongoing dialysis. And this last code is the correct one. Since she's being seen for dialysis, if you go look at dialysis, it's going to point you back. So you would need to code the chronic kidney disease, stage 5. And if you go to disease, kidney, and then you'll see chronic and then the different stages under there. It's actually going to send you to N18.5, but if you look at N18.5, it says it does not include the one presenting with ongoing dialysis, to use N18.6. So that's the one that's used here. And then there's also an instructional note that tells you you need to code Z99.2 for the dialysis. All right, let's take a look at this next one. 4 people were seen in the ED. Which one was a diagnosis of poisoning? Digitalis toxicity is not a poisoning. That's an adverse effect. An allergic reaction, that's an adverse effect. Syncope after taking antihistamine with alcohol, that's probably going to be your correct answer so far. And then reaction between 2 properly administered. Okay, the reaction tells you it is an adverse effect. So your answer would be patient C, the syncope after taking the antihistamine with alcohol. All right, this next one states the patient is in intensive care with fluid overload with acute renal failure. He has type 2 diabetes and sepsis. The patient is sedated and on a ventilator because of respiratory failure. And as you can see what I've got highlighted here, when you have sepsis, you need to do it in a certain order based upon what the guidelines tell you. And so your first thing you're going to code is your systemic infection. The second thing you're going to code is the sepsis. Third is going to be your organ dysfunctions, and then any other diseases that have an effect on this. So in this case, you're going to have the A41.9, which is unspecified organism sepsis. So this is your sepsis code, A41.9. We don't know what the organism was, so it's unspecified. The R65.20 is your severe sepsis, and it states that in here. Sepsis, there we go. He does not have septic shock, so you code it as severe sepsis without septic shock. That's R65.20. The N17.9 starts your organ dysfunction. So this one is for the kidney failure, and this one is for the respiratory failure. It starts off with the acute renal failure here, and then it goes to the respiratory. So we're going to code the renal failure first, the respiratory failure next. And then the E11.8 is the diabetes. This one was a bit challenging, and the sepsis codes are that way. You really need to highlight your book, write your book, whatever you need to do on those guidelines in the beginning, or take the guidelines that I've given you, read through it, find out the information you need, and write that in your book, because you are allowed to write in there as much as you want to. But put some notes on there about what the guidelines are for sepsis, so you know how many codes there's going to be, and what order they come in. All right. This next one is the patient's admitted for severe anemia due to chemotherapy treatments for metastatic bone cancer. Primary site is the prostate. And this is the one you're going to need. The D64.81 is the anemia, and that's what the patient's being seen for. So we're going to code the anemia first. The C79.51 is a secondary neoplasm of the bone. Because it states it's metastatic, that tells you it's a secondary. You can look that up in your neoplasm table and get your code for the metastatic bone cancer. And then the last one, the T45.1X5A, is the adverse effect of the immunotherapy, the chemotherapy treatments there. A tells us that this is the first encounter, and you'll notice that in your book. It'll tell you to go back, that you need an extra code there, and go back to the beginning of the section where the little box is, and it'll have A, B, C, D. And since this is the initial encounter, it's an A. So those are the ones that were most that were missed at least 50% of the time. No more than 50% of the time. So it had either from 0 to 50, somewhere in that range that that y'all got right. And I wanted to make sure you understood how these were, and hopefully this has helped you. If you have any questions, please let me know.